Back with ET now. This is India development debate time now for the political debate on India's remarkable rise in the ease of doing business rankings. And joining us on the show for this leg of the debate, we've got Sanjay Jha of the Congress Party, Arvind Gupta of the BJP, and we're also joined by Ghanshyam Tiwari of the Samajwadi Party. Sanjay Jha, I'm going to start off with you. This is a significant jump, a 30-point jump in the ease of doing business rankings, and many would argue that this is a validation of this government's reform agenda and an indication of the improving investment climate in the country. How is the Congress reading this?
Well, let me just give you a very quick response to this. Firstly, yes, nobody is going to challenge a World Bank report. I'm sure they have done their homework. But the critical part is not the kind of rules and regulations that you may have passed, but it's the way you have actually implemented them at the ground level that matters. And isn't it a strange paradox that during the same period that the World Bank has increased India's ranking on the ease of doing business, you have India's GDP collapsing, joblessness rising, even inflation now beginning to kind of escalate. And at the end of the day, private investment has been sluggish and stalled projects haven't taken off. Now, that is completely contrary to what ease of doing business is supposed to create. And I'll tell you the more fundamental point, that if at the end of the day we are going to be city-centric as a sample in looking at the ease of doing business, India is a very complex economy. I mean, you have a huge number of small entrepreneurs, traders, and the informal economy that somehow never gets captured, or its relevance is not really fully represented in the kind of data that the World Bank has come up with. Therefore, I believe there are some severe limitations here. And I would like to add a second point, before we listen to Arvind as well, is that, end of day, before we live in an economy, we live in a society. While ease of doing business, yes, is one critical parameter, please do not forget that as a society, as a country, when you look at the collective good, you can't ignore that we have fallen down on the hunger index, the global hunger index. We are embarrassingly low, below Syria and North Korea and equal to Rwanda, which means people are dying of starvation in our country. On human development indicator, which I think is the most appropriate manifestation of how a country is doing, because it captures health, education, standard of living, we have gone further down to 131. And I don't want to make it more complex by adding gender inequality and income inequality, etc. But I think in isolation, let's not get carried away. I think the humongous challenge remains before our country. And without, kind of making it into a political tutu meme, there is one fact that we cannot deny. That ground realities in India are remarkably and extraordinarily different from what the regulatory changes have been brought about.
Okay. I can't lose as much sleep as some of you do on Human Development Index, and I do empathize, but I don't think today is the time to discuss that. I'm going to stick with the World Bank rankings. But Arvind Gupta, there's a valid point that Sanjay Jha is making amidst the entire argument that he made, that, our ranking has gone up by 30-odd points. Then why is it, and I'm asking you this question, why is it that private investment is not breaking ground? If the investment climate is anything to go by, it should be good, given the fact that we are at, we are in the top 100 club out of the 130 that maybe were last year. Why is it that private investment or private enterprise doesn't have confidence to invest then in an economy where investment climate should be good?
So I think, let me start by saying that the World Bank report has always carried the same sample set. And it's very important to understand that it measures the political capital and the commercial capital. It takes small and medium businesses of the same size. It's been doing that forever. It's not that suddenly it's changed the sampling criteria or sampling parameters. And three, I think the gestation period of all these parameters is about 3 years. Having said that, I think this report gives us an idea of the structural reform, gives the world an idea that how India has broken from years of policy paralysis and has come out on its own. It's jumped 30 points over the last year, and it's showing the world that we are ready to do business. I think the team India has performed very well here. It's a combination of the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, Niti Aayog, Commerce Ministry, and all the states that have actually collectively done well for this ranking to improve. lastly, I think this is work in progress. There is no denying the fact that we have a long way to go. We have a target of reaching the top 50. So while this has been done, it's the right path, and the direction is very important. We were stagnant at 130s and came down even to 140. I think this jump of 30 points from 130 now to 100 shows that India is in the right direction. The reforms are being taken seriously. There is collective leadership, collective goal setting in the country, and as a country, we have a vision to reform and be the destination in the world to do business, to make investments. I think the last point that you made on FDI, on foreign investment or the investment climate in India, India has been one of the top investment destinations to the world. And I think given the other structural changes that we are doing in our economy, we will see that investment really yielding results, and the private investment also picking up. So it's all this is a combination. There is none of them can be taken in isolation. But today, what we are discussing is the ease of doing business from the World Bank, and I think we should congratulate all the stakeholders in making sure that we have moved up and we are arriving at the world scene in terms of competing with the countries that we compete for capital.
You want to comment? You know, Arvind Gupta, I agree with much of what you said, though not sure about the fact that this will, this in itself will trigger the private investment cycle, but we'll leave that aside. Ghanshyam Tiwari, I'm coming to you. What if India's, rankings in the ease of doing business had dropped by 30 points? Suppose if under this government and if today World Bank from 130, we move to 160. Right? Would you have then also said that, nothing has changed? The fact that it's improved by 30 points and we are among the top 10 improving nations in a list of 190 countries, despite an otherwise adverse economic environment, like Sanjay Jha pointed out, on account of GST and demonetization, is quite remarkable. Would you not agree to that, Ghanshyam Tiwari?
Well, first and foremost, the fact is that this report sends a positive signal to the world. And to that, Arvind, the ruling government, is successful. But the story of India doesn't lie on the signals that we are sending to the world. We've been sending signals to the world for past 3 years, ever since Prime Minister started going across the world, ever since we started Make in India, Startup India, Stand Up India. But we cannot hide our paradoxes. What does this report say? It says that it's more difficult in India to start a business than in ranking shut a business. What are we trying to say? Then it says that when capacity utilization is an all-time low, it says that access to credit is available. Access to credit is available, but the local investors, entrepreneurs are not ready to use that credit. The third, it says electricity is more available. But look, we are talking about a world where all vehicles will be electric. So electricity availability, it's okay. World Bank puts it as a parameter, but we cannot celebrate that we are rank 100. That the entire government today is celebrating that we are in rank 100, it also means that the government is desperate to send out a positive sentiment across the country because it has broken the sentiment to demonetization and poor implementation of GST. The final point is, India always had an ease of doing business when it came to a smallest nano entrepreneur of the country. He would start some material and go out in the unorganized world and start selling that material, that fruit or anything or that service, and get some money out of it. With demonetization, that sector was wiped off. That sector cannot be replaced right now. So the World Bank view of India is for the outside view. What I am worried about is the inside view. The jobs are the greatest indicator of inside view. The success of informal unorganized sector is a key indicator of inside view, and for all the hype that the government says, I think Paytm would have opened more accounts than the Jan Dhan Yojana of Prime Minister that BJP talks about. So technology will take you forward, but it is for the government to make that work for the people, which has not happened.
Hold your thoughts there. And Sanjay Jha, I'll turn to the question that Sandeep Gurumurthy had asked Ghanshyam Tiwari. Let me just first say my question. If our ranking was 160, would you still say nothing has changed? Would you still share Ghanshyam Tiwari's view that this is just for the external world and internally not much has changed? I mean, we have moved from 130 to 100. isn't this a marker of the government's reform move? You may not want to call it reform, but the economic decisions that have been taken on the ground. Is this not a validation of what the government has done for the Indian economy?
Supriya, you'll agree with me that,
is that a question
India
to me?
is still in a very frank way a dichotomy. You have a large, urban manufacturing, foreign multinational, domestics who are large. That's one segment, and then you have the informal economy, small traders, entrepreneurs, and the micro, small, medium-sized businesses. Now, end of day, if you look at the large businesses, which are largely, I think, influenced by the ease of doing business, and I have been a banker, and I can tell you, foreign capital will override even a low ease of doing business if they find an attractive return on capital. They are, after all, a high risk and a high reward game. So many of them invest, and they are willing to go through your bureaucracy. It's not that India hasn't had FDI over the last several decades, right? So the truth is that that's one part of the story. But the bigger part that we should worry about is, have we made any impact on those who are today in Orissa and Bihar and West Bengal and other states of India who are possibly struggling with the basics of how to start a business. Now, if you look at even this report on the fundamentals like property registration, construction permits, how to start a business, trading across borders, they have all actually become more negative than they were positive. So maybe on some parameters this government has maybe done better, but therefore it gets an overall better score. So, but end of day, are the fundamental problems, have they changed? The answer is no. Therefore, I would recommend what is a conventional cliche is cautious optimism. I mean, there's nothing wrong in hoping. I think we should go in the right direction. But I'll agree with Ghanshyam completely that let's not get carried away. This is not the moment to get transported into, the heavens and believe that we have arrived. Please also remember that from a low index, it is easier to rise up to 100. From here on, the climb gets harder. I want to just give one example, Supriya, of my huge disappointment, and Sandeep, to you too. The GST is a landmark, historic, indirect tax reform created by the Congress, implemented by the NDA. And I'll tell you the flaw is in a terrible execution. So today a GST, I'm hoping, will improve India's rankings, but if the execution continues to be so disastrous, it can hurt us. Therefore, I think there are a lot of issues for us to think of, but I would not get euphoric.
Fair enough. I don't expect you to get euphoric, but I'm happy to hear you at least acknowledge that you're cautiously optimistic about the fact that we've improved from 130 to 100 on the back of the government's reforms agenda, some of which you and your party leadership have vehemently criticized. But Arvind Gupta, we debated for an hour with some of India's finest minds, from Cyril Shroff to Swaminathan Iyer to Sunil Munjal, and I think the consensus view was that while this is great, people feel that this is great optics, and on the ground a lot more needs to be done in terms of improving ease of doing business, especially for small and medium enterprises. And the point that Sanjay Jha was making as well, that if you were to go and speak to a small and medium entrepreneur in Gujarat or in Orissa or in Bihar, chances are that he doesn't believe that doing business has become easy. Compliance costs have gone up on account of compliance burden has gone up on account of GST. Would you concede that a lot more needs to be done on the ground before people feel the change as far as doing ease of doing business concerned? Because frankly, as far as World Bank is concerned, and I know it's 10 parameters, and the government has done a fine job of focusing on these 10 parameters and trying to improve our scores. But that doesn't necessarily translate into the fact that doing business has significantly improved for small and medium enterprises. Arvind Gupta.
See, I think, Sandeep, it comes back to the first question that you posed to Ghanshyam, which basically said, if this ranking, for God's sake, had gone down, what would have happened? Hell would have broken loose. So the fact that it has improved, I think, should be commended, and it should be celebrated. But should we stop there? Of course not. This is work in progress. I think everybody acknowledges that. The second point I always make is that this is not an either-or world. It's an and world. We need to improve these rankings. We need to continuously keep working towards that. We need to make sure that the last person in the queue, the Antyodaya programs, are reaching the right people. The smallest of the small businessmen, the micro entrepreneurs, are benefiting from all the schemes. The point that Ghanshyam made about ease of getting credit, I think that's a very significant point. the mudra schemes, they are all working to make sure that the small and medium entrepreneur gets credit easily. I think we are trying to democratize credit and ease of getting capital. And that's a very significant step that small and medium businesses should celebrate. I think the other point, having been an entrepreneur, I can comment on a few things. It's very easy now to start a business in India. It takes about a day to register a business if the name is available. The challenge has been to close, and with the new IBC, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, I think that should help. And I think I will see a positive impact of that going forward. The residential, the property permits and the construction permits is where one of the big challenges lie. This is where the municipal, the local city governance comes into play. We've been asking, the Niti Aayog has been following up with most cities. The smart city plan is sanctioned when you have an online system for this. So all this are work in progress, and I think the impact of these things will be seen in the years to come. Let me also finally say, our target is not to be content with 100. Our target is to reach the top 30, 40 countries in the world. The Prime Minister has set a target of top 50 in the next 2 years. So there is a lot of work that we need to do and continuously keep improving. I do want to leave with one more thought, which I think everybody is saying about GST. GST is something.
Why don't we just come back to you?
Can I comment on GST? There's an important thing.
Okay, go ahead.
The GST issue, while there are issues and everybody recognizes that and we are cognizant of that, there is a lot of agility the government is showing. We also have to take into account the 17 taxes, the indirect taxes that have been rolled into one, NOC-TRI, post coming down, C-forms going away. There is an ease of doing business because of GST getting implemented, and that was the basic premise of the GST. There are technical issues in uploading and the system working, and that will be sorted as soon as possible. So I think overall GST will really positively, very significantly impact the ease of doing business in the years to come.
And that's where my apprehension really lies, that it's an important and a good reform, but given the teething troubles and the disruption it has come to begin with, I don't know how it's really going to pay on as far as ease of doing business is concerned on the ground. You're right. I mean, it will get better with time and things will improve. But I want to focus on the other part of this entire debate. And Ghanshyam Tiwari, let me begin this round with you. You know, whether it's starting a business, whether it is getting an electricity connection, or whether it's even registering property, these are areas where we have slipped. We've slipped many notches in registering property. We've slipped a couple of notches for electricity. From 26, we're down to 29. And in terms of starting a business, we're down from 155 to 156. While there is a distance of, factor, the problem also is that these are subjects under the state. And the sense one gets is that the states are not being able to keep pace with the central government's reform measures. And in some sense, that last mile with the states is what is also letting us down. Are you going to concur with me or will you disagree?
No, absolutely. I think I was independently going to come to the same point. See, India does not live in her map. India lives in her states, in her cities, towns and villages. And look at the state of states in India. Tamil Nadu is battling a political problem. One of the most efficient states, I went to school there, the most efficient lower middle class work ethic, if there exists in one state, it is Tamil Nadu. The state is now in a political crisis, aided by BJP, by the way, right? You look at the richer states, the poorer states. Look at Uttar Pradesh, my state, from road to buildings, everything is being painted saffron. The Chief Minister is busy raising his stature as religious leader, and nobody talks about business. So when BJP is in power, it does not install people, maybe people like Arvind Gupta, who have global experience, a broad set of skills, understanding of businesses from small to large, right? Rather than that, it installs people who does not talk business. They want to talk the agenda and propaganda of BJP. Then the states suffer. And I want to state this very clearly. While the government of India can do a good PR on this, the reality is many states in India, including Gujarat, are suffering with respect to doing business, opening new businesses, closing down businesses. Entrepreneurs are in a jiffy because they don't know which way the politics is playing and whether the state government is actually interested in business or they are interested in their own propaganda. Rajasthan, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. These are just some of the states that I would like to name. But maybe Telangana ranks now much higher than any BJP ruled state when it comes to talking about business, and that is the state of the entire country now.
Right. Sanjay, I comment on that. And again, even on this particular account, the government has taken a step by getting, state rankings going in partnership with the IDFC Institute, if I'm not wrong, to measure competitiveness of various states when it comes to ease of doing business, to promote some sort of, competitive federalism among states. Sanjay Jha, what more needs to be done to get states on board with the broader reform agenda? Sanjay Jha.
Well, I think the first thing is that, the spirit of cooperative federalism has to really be practiced. I mean, end of day, I think what you're seeing, what I find is one of the most ridiculous debates that happen in India is when the political campaigns happen and people are told, the Prime Minister campaigns and says, if you vote for me, well, I'm in the center, I'll support you. I think that's possibly a shocking anti-democratic statement. I mean, can you imagine just because you're in the center, you support a state? Will the people of the state should vote for you simply because you are in the center, otherwise you will not give financial assistance? That I think is nothing but brazen blackmail. So I think we need greater political transparency in our dialogues. And I think, these are critical issues that get lost in the rhetoric of campaigning. But I think it somewhere reveals a high degree of political immorality. My second point will be exactly what Ghanshyam mentioned, that if you look at India today as a whole, it's very, you can blame some states, but look at it like this. Take tax as one fundamental point, imposed largely by the center. Now, tax terrorism is something we don't talk about. Now, remember one thing, the World Bank report, Sandeep and Supriya, will actually praise the government for having greater online tax compliance, which has been going on for a long time. Maybe now the returns are getting to be more aggressive. But don't ignore the reality. Whether it's post-GST or even before, there is a huge tax terrorism culture in India today. Now, who's capturing that fear? That today big business has, small people have, the fear that somebody will come knocking at your door and demand money and put you in jail. Now, these are factors that are never counted in all the rankings that you do. Therefore, I believe governance is never going to be captured. What it does, of course, try and factor in is the fact that you have reduced paperwork and maybe simplified certain rules. But therefore, I come back to the core point. It's the way you practice, the way you run the country, the way you implement those rules, that is really the crux of the whole issue. The GST is a manifestation of a great product, which I think has been thoroughly abused by terrible execution.
Fair enough. Arvind Gupta, I'm going to let you have the last word, just 60 seconds, counter to what Sanjay Jha said on the fact that governance needs to improve. Procedural tweaks are great, which has led to this improvement, but governance needs to improve. And the larger point is, when is India going to break into the top 50? It was a stated objective of the Prime Minister of this country. Will it happen before the next elections, 2019? Will it happen before 2019?
So it's quite rich coming from Mr. Jha on tax terrorism. I think we have had a regime which not only had tax terrorism, but all sorts of environment tax terrorism and other taxes. So I won't comment on that. But I think the larger issue is what Ghanshyam mentioned. I think there is contrary to what he's saying, I think I would say there's a very positive sign among states these days, BJP ruled, non-BJP ruled states. Politically, one may say anything, but everybody is competing for the finite capital that exists. Everybody is competing to get industries into their states. So there's a very healthy competition that is going on, and that is really the cause of pushing the overall rankings of India up. And the Niti Aayog is working very aggressively with states. There have been a list of reforms, about 30, 40 odd reforms that have been sent to all states, and they're constantly monitored on the same. So I started by saying this debate, this is a collective index of Team India. And I think, to answer your question, the aspiration of this country is to be this time we have been the fastest reformer in the world. This is the highest ranking upward change that anybody has seen. I think we should see 2 more such jumps, and in the next 2 years, we should be in the top 50. And that's the aspiration of this country. Thank you.
I'm sure Indian business is going to love that if it were to happen. I'll leave it at that. Completely out of time. Arvind Gupta, Sanjay Jha and Ghanshyam Tiwari, thanks for joining us on the India Development Debate. India's stunning progress on the ease of doing business is a cause for celebration. A 30-point jump on that particular parameter is indeed quite phenomenal. But like our panelists have been saying, it's a job well begun, but only half done.
Thank you very much for being with us right here on ET Now.